If you guys need any Ultimate Team coins, go and check out igvault.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap, and reliable. And if you use code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 6% extra discount. So what's going on, guys? My name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. In today's video, guys, we've got my new 4-2-3-1 custom tactics and player instructions after the patch. Now, these custom tactics helped me reach the top 1000 in the Elite Division, but I did recently play a co-op game with my friend and he's not obviously in the Elite Division, so we lost the game and I lost that 11 skill rating, so we've just dropped out of there, but don't worry, we'll get that back very soon. But yeah, these custom tactics have been very effective for me after the patch and I've won pretty much every game I've played, so hopefully these can help you guys out as well if you are struggling. But just before we get into the video, guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop this video a thumbs up, as that does really help me out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on those notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, let's get straight into it. Alright, guys, so I did take a bit of criticism on my last video for like dragging it out and not showing the tactics straight away, so I'm just going to go ahead and give you guys what you want. These are the custom tactics. You can just go ahead and copy them if you want, but if you want to hear why I use them, then stay tuned to the video because we're going to talk our way through them, and then obviously we're going to go to the player instructions as well. So let's talk our way through this. Why do I have my defensive tactic on balance? Well, the reason I do that is because, like I've said in many videos, the 4-2-3-1 narrow, because that is the variation we're using, is a very balanced formation. You know, when it comes to defense, you can drop off the attackers, you can press, you can do multiple things with it. So by having it on balanced, it gives you the ability to do those things whenever you want. So if you're playing against a player which is, you know, very attacking, you can defend and drop off, or if you're playing somebody that is very slow, you can also press them. I don't like to have this on a certain setting other than balance because, you know, if you have like constant pressure on or pressure on heavy touch, it constantly pulls your players out of position and you're very easily undone. So if you have it on balance, you can easily press if you want to, but it also helps to keep the team shape as a whole. Now, the reason I like to have my defensive width on 50 is because there's a lot of ways people attack in FIFA 22. Some people like to attack narrow and some people like to attack down the wing, and the very good players combine this in their game plans. So by having this on 50, it puts your defenders in a position where they're not caught out too wide, but they're also not too narrow. So it's very hard for your opponent to flank you, and it's also very difficult for them to play through the middle. For depth, guys, I like to have this on 55 because in the new update, they kind of fixed defenders when it came to like chipped through balls and everything like that. Basically, before the update, if somebody chipped a through ball past your defensive line, your defenders would do this weird animation where they'd stand still. Now that's kind of been fixed, so you can get away with a slightly higher defensive line because your defenders don't get caught out by these through balls as much. I also don't like to have this too high because obviously it is very easy for a ball to be played in behind you. Then if you have it on 55, even if they do play a ball in behind you, your keeper can often, you know, snap up the ball before the attackers have a chance to get on the end of it, and it also makes it so your defensive line is not too far back, so you know you're not pinned back and you don't get hit by those long shots, because believe it or not, guys, long shots are still a thing. Even with these multiple patches that EA have done, you can still hit long shots and you can still concede them. So you don't want to be put in a position where it's very difficult for you to get out of your own box. So I like to have this on 55 as a result. Now for build-up play, guys, I like to have this on balanced as well because, like I've said, the 4-2-3-1 is a balanced formation. You don't want slow build-up because then it's very easy for your opponent to press you if you are playing too slow, and you don't want it on fast build-up because sometimes you can be too quick for your own good, and it can be bad game management because if you're just constantly playing quick, you can lose the ball a lot more often, and if you're playing against a good player, they will rip you a new one. So by having this on balanced, it allows you to combine the slow build-up, the fast build-up, and the long ball if you want to, so it's very unpredictable. Now for chance creation, it's kind of the same as what we've just said before. You want this on balance because it allows you to switch up your attack whenever you want. If you have this on possession, your players will just constantly be moving into areas where they can pick up the ball. So you won't be creating too many chances, but you will just be keeping the ball around the edge of the box. If you have it on forward runs, obviously the attackers are just going to be pushing into those deep areas, but that can be very difficult to play those passes if the opposition is, you know, cutting those passing lanes off. And you also also don't want it on direct passing because although this can be good, it can be very difficult to create those chances if your opponent is good defensively and you'll lose the ball. So if you have this on balance, again, you have an option of all of those things. Now for attacking width, I like to up this to 55 because you have a bit more coverage of the pitch. Because the 4-2-3-1 narrow, I know it's called a narrow formation, it's not the most narrow of formations, you know. You can play quite wide with it if you want to. So I like to have this on 55 because it puts your players in those positions where you can take it wide if you want to, or you can play narrow down through the middle. It can be very difficult for your opponent to read, and obviously with those cutbacks down the wing, it can be very difficult for your opponent to stop them. So by having a nice width such as 55, it's just that nice number where you can do those cutbacks and stuff down the wing if you want to, or you can play through the middle and try and create a chance that way. Now for players in box, guys, I like to have this on 7 because if you look at the diagram in the bottom right, you've always got that player that is hanging outside the box. Now the reason you want this is because if you have this too high, for example, if you look at that, every player gets into the box. So if you lose the ball there, you're in deep trouble when it comes to counter attacks. Whereas if you have this on 7, you have a lot of players in the box, but you've got one player on the edge of the box, you see, and you've also got somebody hanging a bit further behind. So it's more difficult for your opponent to counter attack. So it's nice to have this on 7 as you have a lot of players in the box, but you can also defend quite well when it comes to counter attacks. The same kind of thing applies to corners. I like to have this on 3 because you can see you've got somebody around the near post look, you've also got somebody in the middle, and you've also got somebody far post. And if you look at those two players outside the box, you've almost got like 2 lines of defense. So if you do lose the ball, it's harder for your opponent to counter attack because you do have a couple of people back there. And obviously if you've watched my corner tutorial, you can take those corners short, pass it to the edge of the box and take a shot if you want to. Now, I don't know how effective this is after the patch, but again, it's nice just to have those players there for that other option if you want, and obviously it's harder for you to get counter-attacked. Again, the same kind of thing applies to free kicks. I like to have this on 3 because if you look at the defenders, we've got a couple of people back there, so it's very hard for you to get counter-attacked, and you also have a nice amount of people in the box. So yeah, guys, they are the custom tactics that I use, and they've helped me get to the top 1000 in the elite division. Now let's move on to the player instructions. Now there's one thing I want to say when it comes to player instructions. I think less is more when it comes to the player instructions, because if you have too many settings on, it can be very difficult to diagnose a problem with the way you're playing, and it also restricts the attacking AI in many ways and also the defensive AI. So the less settings you have on, the better, because it means your players will be doing more. So to start off, I just leave my striker on, balanced. I just leave him alone because, I don't want him to stay completely central because it's very easy for him to be marked. I don't just want him to get in behind because that's very, one-dimensional. It's very predictable. I don't just want him as a target man because then he'll drop too deep. I don't really want him to have aggressive interceptions because, it'll just waste all of his stamina. And I don't really want him to just stay forward or come back, I want him to be involved. So by leaving your striker alone, he's in like those weird positions where he can pretty much do everything and he doesn't get too isolated up on the top of the pitch by himself. For the left and right attacking midfielders, I also leave them alone because you don't want them to be staying too far out wide, and you also don't want them to be, moving into the box too much because then it takes away the width from the formation. You also don't want them darting into the box all the time for crosses, and similarly, you don't always want them to be on the edge of the box for crosses. So by leaving them on balanced, it allows them to do a bit of everything. You also don't want these to stay forward or put them on comeback on defense because then they're kind of in those weird positions where you're not very good defensively or you're too defensive and it's hard to attack, because if you have them on comeback, obviously they're going to be charging back all the time and it's going to be hard to create those chances when it comes to the counter attacks. And obviously if you have them on stay forward, it can be very difficult to get the ball from the defense to the attack, so they act as a nice bridge when you have them on basic. So just leave those alone, guys. Trust me, it works a treat. Now for my middle cam, I like to have them on stay forward because they act a little differently to the wide cams. If you have them on basic, they seem to just get a little bit lost, whereas if you leave them on stay forward, they're always in that position to pick up the ball when you do win it back. I use Lionel Messi in this position, and because of his work rates, if I leave him on like basic or come back on defense, for example, he kind of just gets lost because of his work rates and things like that. So by leaving him on stay forward, you make sure that he's always in the position you want him to be as a cam, and it also acts acts as another bridge between the cam and the striker, because it can be very difficult to get the ball from the defense to the striker, and if you have this cam here, you've got like another line of play, so it is very useful. And obviously, because I don't have him on like a specific position, he can move left, he can move right, and he can stay central. So, you know, he kind of moves around waiting for the ball, and it makes it much easier to get the ball up the pitch. Now, for both central defensive midfielders, guys, I suggest the same thing: cut pass in lanes, stay back while attacking, and cover center. Now, the reason for this is if you have them on cut pass in lanes, it blocks out a lot of the passes through the middle, and that can be the hardest thing to do in FIFA sometimes. So if you have it on cut pass in lanes, it makes them in those awkward positions where it's difficult for your opponent to play the ball through the middle, which means they can't just break you down with a couple of passes. So they're really annoying, basically, and it works very effectively in FIFA 22 with the AI, of course. Now, you also want them on stay back while attacking because it adds like an extra layer of defense. That's what a CDM is. You want them to be defensive, you want them to add that extra protection to the back line. So if you have them on stay back while attacking, you ensure that you're very solid defensively. Now, the reason we have them on cover center is because if you have them on cover wing, you know, they get drifted out too far. You know, they don't do the job that they're meant to. You know, if you look, they're called a central defensive midfielder, not a wing defensive midfielder. So if you have them on cover center, they're blocking those dangerous areas. You know, nobody's really going anywhere down the wing because you've also got those cams and the right backs. Look, I've got Pele and Hakimi and Vinicius and Mendy. You know, they're covering those areas. You don't need another player there. So if you have them on cover center, it basically gives you solidarity throughout the midfield. So it's very, very effective, guys. Now, lastly, for the fullbacks, I like to have them on stay back while attacking because otherwise you just get ripped to shreds. Because if you have these bombing up the pitch, yeah, it might help with your attack, but the moment you lose the ball, you're in serious trouble. One through ball and you're finished. So if you have these on stay back while attacking, you might find it a little bit more difficult to attack at first, but you'll find that your defensive performance increases massively and you'll concede less goals because you actually have a defensive line. You know, you have your fullbacks in the correct position, so when they try and play those balls down the line, it's much more difficult. Obviously, you can still attack with them, like you can manually move them forward, you can press L1 to make them move forward. Not always the most ideal thing, but it does work very well, guys. And honestly, having these on stay back while attacking is crucial in this formation because 4-2-3-1 is all about defense and balance a lot of the time. And obviously, if you have these in position as well, it gives you a lot of control when it comes to the ball because your team keeps the shape and you've got a lot of width when it comes to passing around. So it is very, very effective, guys. But yeah, they are my custom tactics and player instructions. If you have enjoyed the video or found it useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, as that does really help me out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and I will catch you all later. Peace.